Hi, everybody, and today I'm going to talk about Pluto. Now, I know when people say Pluto or Scorpio or anything associated with Pluto, people freak out, but I hope by the end of this you will sort of be on my side that as difficult as Pluto can be, he is a very necessary little creature. And so I want to sort of make friends with Pluto. So we're going to talk today about Pluto through your chart and through the generations, because Pluto is a generational planet. And what do I mean by that? Well, it takes a ridiculously long time for Pluto to move. Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008. It's not expected to mosey out of Capricorn until 2023, 24. So it's a very long term effect. It has an effect on entire generations. So we're going to break both of those down. Now, I am an evolutionary or karmic astrologer. I've been studying astrology for below these many years. I have learned under Adam Gainsbourg, who many of you know, excellent evolutionary astrologer. And what I do when I look at the chart is I want to paint a roadmap. I want to tell you where you're coming from, where you're going to, where you have to learn and grow and change. And I've always liked Pluto because I guess my son is in Scorpio, but I remember back in, fifth grade, sixth grade, like, before there was hair, that we had to write a report on our favorite planet. Most kids just love to write reports, right? Well, I wrote 13 pages on Pluto. This was the day of handwritten. So I was very much into Pluto even then. So I titled this one Pluto Hated and Feared, because as I said, people have this sort of effect when Pluto is mentioned. And remember, he is the god of the underworld, right? The Greeks called him Hades. He is the god of the underworld. He deals in the world of death and transformation and rebirth. And of course, he has a little bit of a problem these days because he has been demoted to a dwarf planet, and I don't think he enjoys that a whole lot. And Pluto doesn't pussyfoot around, right? So when I was learning astrology, I was learning, like, trying to get a persona, like Mercury's the fast guy, right? He's the communicator, and Venus is love and beauty and creativity. I was trying to create these guys in my head. And Pluto is just this cold, icy guy who says, look, I deal with death, I deal with rebirth, I deal with transformation, I deal with the areas you don't want to go into. And, I'm just going to do it. And if you don't like me, I don't really care, right? I've got a job to do. My job is transformation. And this is what I want you to start thinking of Pluto, this transformative aspect. And I tell my clients, you don't want to come here. You don't want to go through the nonsense of reincarnating and going through all this energy and nonsense that it takes to come back if you're not going to learn, right? You don't want to go back to school every year when we were in school and go back to the first grade, right? Who wants to do that? Nobody wants to do that. You want to go to the next grade. You want to graduate. Well, that's what life is. So this idea of scary Pluto needs to be transformed into the idea of, look, if we're here to grow and change and learn and not stay stagnant, then we should thank Pluto, right? Death is nothing but a transformation of energy. Energy can neither be created nor destroyed. There's a typo on my thing. I said or, it should be nor. Oh, my teachers would have a fit. I will fix that. But this idea of accepting the transformative energy. So rethink Pluto. He doesn't just kill. He doesn't just cause pain. He just does cause disruption for the grins of it. He is the portal, and he opens that portal to deep change. And change can be positive, right? Without change, where would we be, right? There's nothing constant on earth except change, right? That's the old saying. So he is the driving force that we have, in our lives to do this, that we're supposed to do, to make that change. Pluto goes to the depths, right? He's the god of the underworld. He digs deep. He says, it might be painful. You might not want to go there. You might want to say, ooh, I don't need that. But you got to get there. You've got to do the work, even if it's painfully deep, to find what we fear, to find what we hide from ourselves, to find that, I think that I tell my clients to think of that like gunk, that muck, that mire, that stuff that's deep there, that, you don't want to go into the mud pit, right? But you need to do it. To do what? To get rid of it. Then it's up to us. And I got to say, Pluto, as I said in the beginning, he's not a pussyfooter. Pluto says, I'm going to expose this stuff, right? I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring it up one way or another. I'm going to bring it up. And then you have to do something about it. So I expose, you do something about it. And Pluto is, as I say here, a dog with a bone. He's not, the sweet little moon and emotions. He's not the sun energy. He's like, hey, I'm doing this. Okay. So, and that's where he terrifies us. So when I do a birth chart, I look more for the house placement of Pluto, the aspects that it makes, a little bit more than, what sign it is, because it is a generational planet. I mean, all of us who are baby boomers were born with Pluto and Leo, right? So you look at a chart, Pluto and Leo, okay, well, join 80 bazillion other people with Pluto and Leo. When I do a birth chart, when I'm looking at your chart, I look at that house placement and the aspects, and then we'll get into the generational stuff. So as I said, Pluto demands work. He causes an uncomfortable feeling, and he often causes what Adam Gainsbourg taught when he taught us, he said, look for the lack pattern. Because where Pluto is in your chart, there is that fear of lack of power, right? I lost this power somewhere in some incarnation, particularly if Pluto is retrograded. And now I gotta do the dirty work, do the gunk, do the muck, do the mire, and find out why that is happening and bring it up. And I may be digging through lifetimes, but I've got to do this. And I say here, if we ignore Pluto, he will send you what I call love notes, reminders to take control. And often, particularly if he's retrograded, but in any case, you will get little reminders through your life depending on the house it's in. And I say the best way to visualize this is, imagine if you have Pluto in the 6th house, or Pluto transiting the 6th house. 6th house, the house of health, right? Working the body. And you're, 500 pounds, and your only exercise every day is, lifting the potato chips to your face, right? At the time that Pluto is transiting the 6th house, you just might start feeling sicker than usual, right? And your doctor's going to say, hey, you gotta exercise, you gotta lose, 400 pounds, you gotta do this, come on. And if you don't, Pluto sends you to keep reminding you. And if you don't listen to him, that's when you may have the heart attack. So Pluto does not relent. And this is why he has the birth chart. He doesn't care. He doesn't care if what the consequences are if you fail to transform. Remember, he's the god of the underworld. So, if I kill you, and I'm speaking metaphorically here, okay, that's my domain. My job, it's like, remember, I got this job. This is my job. You've got to change. This is the area you have to change. And I'm just going to keep letting you know that you haven't done the work yet. So he's a difficult taskmaster. Now, of course, when I'm doing a full chart analysis, I not only look at the house, but I look at the aspects. Somebody's got Pluto with Mars, okay, anger. If there's a retrograde, then this is an overuse or an underuse of power. So I look at the aspects as well. So let's just walk through here. And these are general assumptions. Again, I don't have time to go into all the aspects that Pluto makes with everything in each house, but just a general idea. And this is either Pluto by birth or Pluto transiting. Pluto first house fears, right? What is the first house fear of Pluto? Well, what's your first house? It's your personality. It's your self-expression. It's your putting yourself out there. So Pluto in the first house is going to bring around this sense of, I'm kind of a wallflower. Oh, I'm just not going to bother. Yeah, okay. I'm not going to assert myself. I may not even be, it's not like Neptune, where Neptune takes away every ounce of self-awareness, but it's like, I'm not going to assert myself. Maybe my drive, my goals, my push. Remember that first house is dominated by Aries energy. I'm a little bit afraid of that. I don't really know how to express myself. So if you're born Pluto in the first, that's the feeling. I got to change. I don't like who I am. I don't like how I present myself. And by the way, if you have Pluto on the sun and Pluto on the moon, it's very similar. I got to tear down who I am and build up a new one. I don't like that person who goes out the door. And when Pluto transits the first house, those feelings of, am I a fraud? Am I expressing myself will come through. So Pluto in the first deals with self-expression, self-assertion. Pluto in the first house lessons, well, of course, asserting yourself. Stop giving in to the bullies. Be yourself. Develop initiative, right? All of those first house drive issues. Pluto in the second house, fears of money, stability, safety, security, right? That's the second house. First house, oh, hey, I'm born here on Earth. This is me. Second house, oh, there's a lion coming at me. I have to protect myself. I have to build a house. Oh, I have to get a job to have more money. So it's these basic primal things, right? The first and second house. So someone with Pluto in the second by birth or Pluto transiting the second is going to feel like, maybe I don't have enough money. Maybe I don't have what it takes to secure myself, to build the proper house or the proper safety net, as we say. So those are the fears that are going to come in when Pluto goes around the second house. But what does he want you to learn? He wants you to be aware of your physical and sexual safety. There's a sexual aspect to the second house in terms of someone who may use their sexuality as a security factor, selling themselves for safety and security. There's a resource security. Oh, maybe I'm 50 years old and I don't have any money saved. This is not good. That kind of awareness, self-reliance. I can make it. I can support myself. Self-security, I can build that house. So those are the lessons. And remember, he sends you messages big time. Be aware of what Pluto is trying to teach you as he goes through the houses or as he sits in your birth chart. And it's a lot easier, trust me. Pluto third house. Well, what's the third house? Communications, right? Social skills, communicating, saying what you think, learning issues, how I take information. Pluto also, and I should have put it on here, Pluto third house is also siblings, community, right? I now have Pluto transiting my third house. Seems like it's been 1,000 years. I have had to reset relationships with siblings. And one that may actually be coming back because I had to separate myself from this person. We were siblings, but it wasn't working and it was no good for me. So I was forced to do that. And now the relationship may be coming back, right? Pluto saying, okay, doing the lesson, coming back. I've had to sever relationships with people because I had to say, wait a minute. I don't agree with your stance. You're being a little bit racist. You're being a little bit sexist. We got to have a talk. That's what Pluto does. Finding a new community, finding new friends, finding, this idea of my social skills, my community building is needing change. And again, you could In the one case, the case of the relationship with a friend, I kept for many years denying, oh, well, she's not really like that. She may be just saying these things. And then I'm like, no, wait a minute. Pluto's just sending you too many messages. You have to stop and think, this person really is not the person you want to associate with. So that's third house, that community, the siblings. What is the lesson? Well, find your adult voice, right? I had to assert myself with the friend. I had to assert myself in the family. I'm not playing that role anymore. I may be the youngest in a large family, but I'm an adult, and this is how I'm going to react. Be confident in your knowledge. Be confident in your social skills. Educational challenges I put there because especially if you're younger, this idea of, I can't get ahead, I'm not smart enough, because the third house deals with primal education can also be there. Pluto in the fourth house fears. Well, what's the fourth house? Mother, emotions ruled by the moon. This emotional codependence, these abandonment issues, this self-doubt. Who am I? I always say to my clients, the fourth house is, who am I at my core? When no one's looking, when all the masks are off, who am I, right? The abandonment issues come again from that emotional mother attachment. I'm not safe out there. I need a crutch. So the Pluto in the fourth house can also make you sell your house and move, but I'm talking on a deeper level, this idea of, okay, here I am, here's this person, here's the person I want to present on my own, without any crutches, without any drivel surrounding neediness, emotional neediness. So, of course, what does the fourth house Pluto tell you? Self-love, right? Heal the mother issues, heal the feminine issues, heal the emotional codependence. What do you need? What do I need to feel like a really strong person? What do I feel? How do I feel that I could take this face without the masks and put it out there as much as anyone can, right? There's always a mask hidden. There's always, that persona that doesn't come out. You have to wear a certain mask in public. Authenticity, right? Finding my true self, finding my place in the world. I'm here. This is me. This confident self-reliance. Fifth house, of course, where does it come in? Creativity, suppressing your aliveness. There can also be a sexual suppression. I think of our sexuality as a fifth house thing. Some people do it as an eighth house thing. Eighth house really didn't come around until the early 1920s, by the way. It's the first time that the eighth house was connected with sexuality. So it was really a fifth house thing much longer. So I like to keep it there. So this idea of, first of all, my creativity, my aliveness, my spark. I always think of the fifth house, right? It's the sun house of here I am. Here's whatever I have to offer the world. And Pluto there says, oh, I'm a fraud. I'm really not alive. I'm really not creative. Oh, I'm not different than it, but I don't have anything to offer. And it makes you plow through all that until you realize that you do have something to offer. We all have a creative spark. And of course, that deals with sexuality as well. If there's sexual issues, the Pluto in the fifth house can bring up memories, if you will, suppression of abuse, of sexual abuse, that kind of thing. So it can get a little bit dicey in the fifth house. Pluto in the fifth house also makes you bring up questions about your children, right? Fifth house, children, creativity, sexuality, and healing, hopefully anything that may have been screwed up, for lack of a better word, with your children from long ago. So what are the lessons? Well, what is that creative outlet? And further, not only what is your creative outlet, you do have creativity, right? Take center stage somewhere. And I put here, be unique. Yeah, we all are unique, but do we allow that uniqueness? Allow yourself to shine in some way. That's what Pluto says here, right? No, you are a creative person. You are a sexual person. You know, you've got this ability. Show it, use it, you know, dig through the mud that's there that's telling you that you're not, you know. Now, I sort of alluded to this in a sort of a really bizarre way with the 500-pound man. But of course, what's the sixth house? It's our body. It's the food we put in our face. It's the exercise that we do, right? It's the working of the body, the feeding, the care. So sixth house spheres, and I have to tell you, every single time I have to tell someone Pluto's about to transit their sixth house, I have to say, okay, wait a minute. This does not mean you're going to get sick, because that's the first thing they say. Oh, it's going to bring change to my health. It's going to bring awareness. Now, yes, if you are not taking care of yourself, if you are that, you know, guy on the couch with the potato chips, Pluto doesn't pussyfoot around. Remember what I said. So the idea of taking care of yourself, and it could just be a matter of, yeah, I could get my butt out of bed a half hour early and go for a walk because it's spring. Although I don't think we're ever going to have spring. It's going to snow in April, but that's another story. So this idea of, yeah, I can do this. I can take control. I can say, you know, because remember, sixth house is work, our day-to-day work. I can say to the gum snapper in the next cubicle, you know, you've got to stop snapping your gum all day long, right? I could find that which irritates me. I can make a physical change to my office. You know, I had a friend of mine saying, I don't know why I keep repainting my office. I don't like this color, and I'm moving this, and I'm getting new files. And I'm like, didn't I just do your chart? Didn't we just talk about Pluto in the sixth? She's like, oh yeah, day-to-day work, Pluto in the sixth. And I put here accurate sense of self because the sixth house deals with the body, right? It's a very physical house. This idea of being aware of your value in terms of, look, I can produce this sense of self, the sense of accomplishment, right? I could stop smoking. I could stop eating potato chips. I could stop doing this, but you know what? I can take care of myself on a bigger level, right? I can produce something. I could grow a garden. I could, you know, use this body, you know, even if it's got some problems, I can overcome them. You know, it's that very, very deep awareness of that. So what does the sixth house Pluto teach us? Balance of work and health, right? That healthy. Are you a workaholic? You know, do you have home life down there and work life way up here? Healthy body image. Now, of course, this gets into people who may, you know, have eating problems or cutting problems or, you know, just, I can't stand this body problems. I mean, this can go very deep. We're talking about Pluto and this control over the physical environment, right? I can have a workspace. I can create a space in my home for doing this, that, and the other thing. I have control over this area where maybe I never felt I had control before. Now, if there's something that strikes fear in the heart of Pluto in the sixth, Pluto in the seventh also creates fears because what is seventh, right? It's our connection. It's the marriage house, right? It's the house of partnership. It's the house of relating to the other person. So it's like, oh, I'm going to get divorced. And I'm saying, if your marriage is this bad that you're fearing that Pluto going through there is going to cause a divorce, that's your first lesson. What's making you think that, right? So this idea, this fear of they don't love me, or I am fundamentally unlovable, or I always think of the seventh house as our most codependent house. Who am I unless you tell me who I am, right? Self-definition, codependence. And, you know, seventh house vibrates to Libra. I'm Libra rising. I could write a book on the seventh house in that issue. So this idea of saying, oh, nobody of value is going to love me, or I don't know who I am, or I'm so caught up in my social circle that they define me. These are all things that are going to come up. And yeah, maybe maybe it will be the business partner that you have a break with. Maybe you have to redefine your marriage. It changes. The kids are gone. The kids are coming in, but it doesn't necessarily mean total disaster, but he wants you to keep looking. So what are the lessons of seventh house? Well, finding that balance, right? That balance between me and them. Where do I stop? Where do they start? This self-discernment, the healthy relationship. You have to think deep, and you have to think of Pluto as like an onion. It peels and peels. So you think, oh, okay, I found a healthy inner balance. Okay, well, I just have Pluto in this house for another 6 years, so I guess I did all the work right now. He's going to keep digging. He's going to send you messages and tests. Pluto loves to test. Did you really find that inner balance? Have you really stopped the codependence? Let's just see. And he sends his little icy fingers down to, zap you. So remember, it's a constant learning with Pluto. Now, of course, Pluto loves the eighth house. It's the house that it's most comfortable in, right? So the eighth house is power, transformation, right? Will, strength. So Pluto in the eighth house is not always an easy time, because he could send a sudden lack of loss of money, right? Goods of the dead, inheritances, eighth house. He could send you challenges in terms of someone you love, maybe getting sick, maybe even passing. He can touch all those deep fears. So if you're harboring these fears, if you are thinking, I don't have the power to change, or I don't have the power to withstand change, I don't have the power to do this on my own, it can be a tricky transit. And I have a couple of friends who were born with Pluto in the eighth, and having to crawl back and gain that power. I have one who was married 3 times to guys who did nothing but, dominate and restrict and fight. And I'm like, aren't you tired of this? Giving up this power all the time. And I had a new client who came in with Pluto in the eighth, and I'm like, you're really powerful, but you don't know it. She says, oh, that's what my husband says to me. I said, yeah, he could see something in you that you don't see. Get over that Pluto fear and find your power. So that's why the eighth house lesson, take back your power, learn self-control, understanding that life is about sometimes betrayal and always about loss. Remember, Pluto always wins in the end. How does that make you feel? How does that make you connect to the other side? And of course, that whole eighth house connecting to the other side is a whole nother kettle of fish, finding your psychic power, your spiritual power. So this is a tough one, but the lessons are really incredible. Ninth house fears when Pluto goes there, not knowing your truth, right? Feeling spiritually abandoned. I call it the humility of knowledge. Oh, I don't know everything. Oh, there's something out there I have to learn, huh? I may not be the smartest kid, or I may realize that, the mountain, the educational mountain is up there. Or I may even realize that the spirituality I'm following in my life doesn't suit me, but it's comfortable. And everybody in my family goes to this church or studies that religion or blah, 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 but it's not working for me anymore. So do I just pretend? Don't pretend with Pluto. Face these realities, because the lessons, ninth house lessons, are tremendous growth, expansion in the spiritual world, in the educational world, opening new avenues of learning, opening to new people, finding new travel opportunities, new classroom opportunities, new cultures, new religions. Pluto is saying, hey, you can go out there, you can search, don't be afraid. I always say the ninth house is like a big arrow shooting out, shooting up into the sky. This idea of growth, of moving out. So take advantage of that. When he goes into the 10th house, what are the fears? What's my life direction? How is authority controlling me, right? How am I overworking or over pleasing, right? The 10th house is the big daddy house, the Saturn house. Um, um, Someone once said to me that the 10th house is the lifestyle. It's our lifestyle. And I liked that phrase. It's how we live in linear space and time, right? It's how we live in the structure, the authority of our society. So when Pluto goes in there, what he's saying is, are you paying too much time, worrying about your job? Again, this balance. Are you always in the binds of authority? Do you not have control over your life, that direction of your life, because, well, you're pleasing daddy, or you're doing what, I hate this term, the man tells you to do? What do you want to do with this life? So this can be challenging, right? But it can be also amazing. The lesson, turning the tape off in your head, right? So many people, this is what my family expects of me. Well, your parents have been dead for 20 years. That tape is still playing in your head. That authority tape, that Saturnian, 10th house, you must, you do. Walking away from the office, and I don't mean bye-bye, I'm quitting, even though I've got 7 kids to feed. It's like, wait a minute, is this what I want to be doing? How I want to do it? Where are the tweaks? This people pleasing, right? The authority figures. I have to make sure everybody likes me, the boss likes me. And I say, is the whole world watching? Because that's the 10th house. That's the whole world, right? It's our structure of life. What do you want to do? How do you want to encompass that? When we get to the 11th house, well, the 11th house is a very tribal house, right? It's the house where we come together with like-minded people. So the fears are social isolation, no creative spark. No one sees my creative spark. I'm hiding in the group, right? I don't have self-freedom. I'm afraid of putting myself out there. I'm even afraid of putting myself out to the point of finding people that may think like me, right? My tribe. I don't have a tribe. And Pluto's saying, well, yeah, maybe you do. Maybe you need to put yourself out there. What do you believe? What do you want to do? What do you want to transform in society? You can do it, even if it's the local knitting club or the local dog walking club, right? There's a tribe for everyone. Stop with the social isolation. Stop with the fears. And the lessons. Center in your personal creative joy. Faith that your contributions are valuable. And remember, it could be the other way too. You could be someone who's at the PTA on Monday and the this on Tuesday and saving the whales on Wednesday and this, and you have that balance is too much this way. You have no me time for your own creativity because you're saving the world in every group. So it's balancing that. So it's either pushing you out the door or saying, now, wait a minute, come back, read the book. You don't have to be the one holding up every pillar of every group in the world. You can have some creative time of your own. And when Pluto runs back into the 12th house, well, the fears, of course, am I worthy of being that child of God, right? 12th house, our connection to source. You can face the escapism, right? Oh, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go there. I'm just going to pretend, the world is full of bunnies and duckies, and I'm not going to face the reality of life. Conversely, if you're somewhat nihilistic, and feeling that there's no good, this world sucks, it's just, this, people escape either into the happy world or escape into the nihilistic bad world, right? So where are you escaping, right? Where are you not living in the physical world? That's the fear that's going to come up. The subconscious fears. The 12th house, God, I took a great class a long time ago on medieval astrology, and the 12th house was a very bad house. It was always a malefic. It was the house of secret enemies. It was the house of death and subconscious limitations. It was ironically also the house of childbirth. which was 50-50, you're going to die. So this very limiting, like there's an enemy around every corner. You know, if you're this type of fearful person, like there's no one out there in the universe to protect me. I'm either going to be completely nihilistic, or I'm not going to face anything. I'm going to go to the world of puppy dogs and fairy dreams. You know, all of that is going to bubble up when Pluto goes through the 12th house. And the lesson is great. Open to spirit, doing great past life subconscious work. I mean, if you've got, you know, buried stuff from past lives, oh my God, Pluto in the 12th can open that up. And life management, comfort in the physical, right? This is the thing. It's okay to be in the physical. You don't have to escape. You don't have to run away. So this is, you know, a really quick, 35-minute walk around the things that come up. Again, you have to look at aspects. You have to look at, you know, other influences of retrogrades and whatever, but this is the basic. This is just to sort of get your feet wet when you're dealing with Pluto. Now, I said Pluto is, generational. Well, here's a chart of the US, which is kind of goofy, elongated. But if you notice that we were born, the US was born when Pluto was in Capricorn and in the second house. So Pluto, second house, what did I say? Money, stability, security, right? All of these things, our standing, our safety. Are we safe? Are we financially secure? Do we have that house around us protecting us? So America's always been, oh, you guys are so money driven. Excuse me, you are so concerned about the almighty dollar. Well, yeah, I mean, we got Pluto in the second house, right? We also have our node there, but that's another class for another time. So we will never have, as a human being, a Pluto return, unless you're Methuselah. Pluto takes 276 years to go around the sun. So, you know, you and I will never have it. But, of course, a nation can have a Pluto return. So the inner wheel here is our birth chart, July 4th, 1776. The outer wheel are the current transits. I cast this on March 16th. So Pluto is now, 20 degrees Capricorn. It was 27 degrees when we were born. So we are in our Pluto return. What is it bringing up? Fears of financial security, fears of who we are, fears of, you know, are we the stable guys? We're very secure. We don't have any issues. Well, I'm not going to get too political here, but someone is bringing all these fears front and center. This idea of are we still the financial leaders of the world? Are we still what Reagan used to call that shining beacon on the hill? Or is our dirty underbelly being exposed? Is everyone seeing our racism, our financial insecurity, our financial inequality that we have a tremendous amount of in this country, the 1%, the oligarchs, all this. And Pluto's like, I'm just bringing it up. I'm coming back around, and all this is coming up, and I don't know. You know, Pluto doesn't really care if we remain the financial powerhouse of the world or it goes to China. Pluto doesn't care. Pluto is saying, I'm bringing up all those fears. I'm a generational planet. I'm going to be there a long time. You're going to have to deal with it. And he's doing a darn good job of it, isn't he? So this is when, and I wrote here, generational Pluto, no retrograding back. Because often what will happen, Pluto will go into a sign. Like Pluto went into Capricorn in, I think, very late 07, early 8 for a short period of time. And then he retrograded back. And then he came forward. Then he retrograded back. I wasn't going to note every month that he retrograded. So this is generally, Pluto was in these signs these years. So again, it's not completely accurate. So it may have retrograded back in 1913 and then moved back to Cancer. But I was just making it as simple as possible. So think back, right? Pluto in Cancer. So that was the people born between 1914 and 1939. Well, what went on there? Well, Pluto is in Cancer. What is Cancer? Fourth house, home, mom, apple pie, right? We had two major world wars. We were literally fighting for what we believed in. And those people, now my mother was born during this. My father was born before this. But this idea of what? Home and the Waltons, and we went through the Depression where everybody had to fight for their home and their safety. So Pluto in Cancer brought up all those fears around mom and apple pie, and is the American way still there? And we have to fight for our homeland. Now, of course, there were other countries who were fighting for the motherland or the fatherland, but this was the energy that was coming up. We have to defend. Then, of course, we come to the Pluto-Leo generation. Well, these are the baby boomers for the most part. I mean, the baby boom started in 45 here in the States and went through 57. But look at me. What's the baby boom generation? The me generation. What's Leo? I'm ruled by the sun. Everybody look at me, right? Did you ever see a shy Leo? You know, it's like, here I am, world. So we were going to be the generation that changed the world, right? We didn't trust anybody over 30. Remember that mantra? We were going to make the world so different. We were special. We were the biggest. We were filling the schools. We were Pluto Leo. We were the me generation, for better or for worse. Then we went into the Virgo generation. Gosh, if there's anybody different than a Leo, it's a Virgo, right? What does the Virgo concentrate on? Work, right? So we started to see work roles shifting, 60s, 70s. We started seeing women coming into the workplace. We started seeing concern with Earth Day. The first Earth Day happened here. Rachel Carson, Silent Spring happened there, right? Virgo is a very earthy sign. Now, I am condensing all the things that happen because we have a very short amount of time, but you're getting the sense of what Pluto brings up generationally, right? Virgo is very earthbound, garden, home, life, physicality, right? Then we started to get the exercise tapes that blossomed all through the 70s. Then when Pluto went into Libra, right? Well, what's Libra? It's that seventh house, right? It's marriage, it's relationships. Well, what happened? We redefined marriage. Women started not taking their husband's name. Divorce exploded, right? We started all of this energy of, wait a minute, we're going to balance this. This was the time when we tried to get the ERA passed here in the States. It was sort of this very awakening, what was it? The feminine mystique, the feminine rising, consciousness raising, right? That was a big term back then. So that was the basic energy of Pluto Libra. Then we went into Scorpio. And a lot of these kids born 84, 95, we started to get this. First of all, anyone who runs around with tattoos, I have a lot of friends who have kids born there. I'm like, oh, what is it with the kids and the tattoos? I'm like, it's Pluto and Scorpio kids. Right? We're gonna reach the taboos. We're gonna tattoo our body. We also started to see a lot of depression in kids. We started to see suicides in kids, right? The darker side of Scorpio. There's a kind of a nihilistic energy there. We also started to see unfortunately the rise of AIDS and sexually transmitted diseases. That was Scorpio. Scorpio rules the genitalia. And then we had the Pluto Sag kids. Well, before this, if you said you were an astrologer, I mean, I could go into a business meeting now, and kind of a button-down business meeting, and say, yeah, I do astrology. And it's like, you know, you still get some of those kind of looks, but you can do it, right? Because Sagittarius is the seeker of the other side, right? It's the growth and the religious seeker and the spiritual seeker. So you have this, you know, acceptability of this, but there's the downside. What happened when Pluto was in Sag? 1995 to 2008. You had the rise of fundamentalism, right? You had the jihadists. You had 9/11. during this, because what's the downside of Sag? I know my truth, right? The good side of Sag is I'm seeking my truth, right? It's okay. There are many paths to God. I mean, that started to come out around that time. But the dark side of Sag, this is the truth. We still see fundamentalism taking a hold in this country, but we saw 9/11. That's the downside. And then, as I said, we're now in Pluto and Capricorn. So where's the change? Keeping Pluto change, right? Capricorn is not only work, so telecommuting started, work days shifted, but Capricorn is the big daddy. It's government, it's authority. So, I tell my friends, 2008, Barack Obama, we elected the first president who's African-American. We're really good. We don't have any racism anymore. We're great. And I said, I kept saying all during this last election. In fact, I just published on Soul Sign, Adam Dainsberg, I just published a thing about the 2016 election and North Nodes and Trump and Hillary. And I'm like, Pluto giveth and Pluto taketh away. We thought we were great. We're not racist anymore. We got a black president. It's there. What's Pluto doing? Bringing all that up into government. There's Brexit, right? Shaking the government authorities. Pluto's got a ways to go yet. When Pluto goes into Aquarius in 2024, I think artificial intelligence, right? Because what is Aquarius? Electricity, future thinking, detachment. If you think everybody's, sitting behind their cameras and their phones like this now, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, that stuff will go off the boards. I wonder how we're going to be tribal during this time. I really don't know. It's going to be very interesting. Pluto in Pisces, don't know if I'll see it, but when Pluto goes into Pisces, again, that connection to the other side, the opening of the world of spirit, the opening of the world of the other side in terms of our connections. But remember, what's the downside of Pisces? Escapism, right? Living in a fantasy world. I can't imagine what that'll be in 2043, but that's just, again, a taste of this. So I went through here. I should have been flipping here as I was talking, but I start talking and I forget. But again, here's the things I said. Pluto in Leo, Pluto in the me generation, showing off, right? And again, I started with my generation, right? Because it's the Pluto and Leo generation. It's the me generation. Pluto in Virgo, as I said, the work ethic, Silent Springs, eating disorders. That's something I forgot to mention. Eating disorders came to prominence. We first started hearing anorexia. I don't know when Karen Carpenter died, of the Carpenters. It was like, wow, people are dying from eating disorders. That's a very Pluto Virgo thing. Libra, the generational, the changes in marriage, the rise of divorce. I didn't mention that. The rise of the women's movement, right? Consciousness raising, all those things I mentioned. Scorpio, again, changes in the marriage rules, changes in the mores, the genders changing. Like, I had a friend of mine said, oh my God, my kids are saying they identify as this, and this one identifies as a girl sometimes and a boy sometimes. I don't get it. It's that gender confusion that's very Pluto in Scorpio. And as I said, we see the good side, the growth of the Eastern spirituality, the education, and Pluto and Sag brought us 9/11. And I mentioned this idea of lifestyle, of patriarchy, of Pluto and Capricorn. Interesting, I should have mentioned Pluto and Aquarius. What is community? That's going to be changed. Electrical, virtual reality, all that stuff is going to explode. But what is a community now? If I don't ever have to leave my house and I could commune with everybody all over the place, what's a community? That's going to be the issue of that. So that is my very quick walk around the Pluto world. If you have any questions, there's my email. Again, I am, cutting things down, but I do love my Pluto. And so I hope that you have enjoyed this as much as I have. And I thank you, Linda, and everyone for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit of Pluto with you.
Joan, thank you so much. Really fantastic as usual. And so thank you from all of us, and we'll see you next time.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Very informative.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Incredible. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you for tuning in.